People.
Hi everyone. Now we are live on YouTube. So welcome to our 5th edition of the Everyone Can Contribute Coffee or Cafe. And the thing we weird to hear myself on YouTube now. The thing is, we kind of thought about what we want to discuss next. And one of the things was, maybe learning Rust or maybe doing something else. And then there was HashiCorp Waypoint last week. And for me, this is totally exciting because it was last kind of like trying things out Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening. And I was wondering so I don't have a plan for today, but I was asking Brandon and Abu Bakr to join on in. Maybe Brandon, you could give us a quick introduction what HashiCorp Waypoint is, how we discovered it last week, and what do you think about it?
Sure. Yeah, I can. I only learned of it last week. HashiCorp announced 2 brand new products at their conference last week, which they teased a lot, like leading up to it, and it was pretty cool to see. I mean, they don't have a very, I guess now they have a much larger product portfolio, right? But we've known them to have a very tight focus on, Terraform and Vault, and of course they had Console and Packer and Vagrant. But then they added 2 last week. So one was Boundary, which is not Waypoint. So I'll talk about that first, and then I'll get to Waypoint. Boundary is like this, I don't even know how to describe Boundary, a proxy. The idea is not having to take a whole bunch of steps to get connected to your production instances of things. So that's really cool. I haven't played with that at all yet. That's another cool thing that I haven't played with. But Waypoint, and I'll share my screen for that, is basically, I think, did I say Terraform for your applications? Is that what I said at first, Michael? Or Terraform for your build?
I think yes, because
yeah.
I think we were just going lots of back and forth what to expect. So we were kind of expecting something in the CI/CD area, and we were not sure what this is now.
So I think the easiest way to describe it is it's like Vagrant meets Terraform for building and deploying your application. So, the same way that Terraform wraps all of the different cloud APIs, to create infrastructure, it's Waypoint's goal, and they already are doing it for many places, to wrap the APIs for deploying applications into cloud infrastructure. And then allowing you to define that in a declarative way, right? So like an HCL way, to say this is what the build, deploy, and release should look like, to no matter where you're going, if it's Kubernetes or Nomad or EC2 or ECS, theoretically you're, abstracting away that from the developer, which may or may not make sense depending on what you're doing. And then also the simplicity of Vagrant, right? So the thing that Vagrant gave us all, or gave many of us in our development environments, is like, hey, I want to just get a working dev environment going with all the little bits and pieces that I need. And so I can say Vagrant up, and it gives me a, running machine, virtual machine with everything the way it should be. And so Waypoint tries to recreate that simplicity by saying, oh, you just run Waypoint up and you get your app. And so the idea is this kind of build, deploy, release methodology, where build is basically package up a Docker container. So it uses cloud native build packs, which is the same thing that GitLab uses as part of Auto DevOps to, detect your language and automatically, even if you don't have a Docker file, take it and Dockerize it for you and make a Dockerized version of the application, and then push that image, to a repository of some sort. And then deploy is like, okay, we want to take that artifact, that Docker image we created, and deploy it somewhere. So that could be like a Kubernetes cluster, it could be an ECS cluster, it could just be to Docker running on a machine, it could be to Nomad. But there's a number of different deploy targets, basically, and you target the platform, and then we take your image and push it out there. And this thing that I don't fully understand yet is this concept of a deployment URL where, okay, if I deploy a, no matter where I deploy it, I get this like waypoint.run URL that is a direct link to that deployment. So it's pretty interesting methodology there, although I don't fully understand it yet. And then releasing. So like it also has this concept of, taking away the old deployment and releasing the new one. So if you're going to Kubernetes, drain the old containers and pods and leave this to be the running one, and then it's released on a certain URL as well. So that's the basics of the idea, but at its core, it's really just kind of like a CLI tool that does that. And again, it's defined with this like an HCL file, so to look familiar to the folks that may be familiar with Terraform, right? And this kind of HCL definition of what my app is, where it is, how I'm going to build, deploy, and release it. And then it has, I was going to show the deploy targets, which are somewhere. Oh, I thought that would have been an easy thing to find. But, oh yeah, here we go. Okay, so target deployment platform. So Kubernetes, Nomad, EC2, ECS from Amazon, Google Cloud Run, Azure Container Instances, and Netlify are the ones right now. But again, of course, we'll probably expect that list to grow. And then the other thing you need is to be able to automate that execution somehow, right? So it doesn't really come with like a runner or something that, is the way to orchestrate this. So you can orchestrate it with a number of things, including GitHub Actions or GitLab CI/CD or Circle or Jenkins. So right now it's like that's the way that one runs it in production in theory, is running it inside of some sort of other orchestration tool. And so that's kind of the work that we did. Michael, I don't know if you want to, where you want to go from here, but that's Waypoint in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I was kind of wondering what else did we do. I think we discussed Terraform images, if I recall that correctly. No, Waypoint images, not Terraform. Maybe Abu Bakr want to jump in and tell us a little more about this.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I think to make it easier for users of GitLab, it was necessary for us to create CI templates like we have for other applications and services that we use. That was when we decided, okay, why don't we have a project that creates images, that creates Waypoint images in different versions and makes it easier for anyone that wants to run it. If you look at the example that Brendan just shared, let me share my screen. Briefly.
Yeah, probably I should have mentioned that I'm now taking the shortcut into finding how we can improve the CI/CD templates, because the previous example was like many steps after the other, and this can certainly be improved and abstracted away. And I think we came to the conclusion when we had all the DevOps and including, for example, the security scanners into the GitLab CI configuration. So yeah, I think this is where we want to look at now. Yeah, and you have it opened already.
Yes, exactly. So the steps here involves, okay, for every time you run it, you have to like get the release, you have to zip it, move it to where it can be executable before you run what you need to run. So it's not efficient, and we decided to make it more easier and not having to specify a version of waypoints that you want to run. Like in the example here, if you notice, a specific version to download was not specified. So one of the things we did was we have this draft MR that Brendan worked on and should be part of GitLab soon. We created the template based off what was shared on the Waypoint documentation, which is this Waypoint GitLab CI. And all it does is to, right from within your CI/CD, you can include Waypoint as a template without having to write it yourself. And it uses images that we've already prepared. We created a project, Waypoint Images, where basically what it does at the moment is just to download the Waypoint binary, package it into images, and removes the entry points that the default Docker Hub image that HashiCorp adds. So the entry point breaks CI because it will want to display like a description of what the binary does to your output. But with the ones we created, we removed the entry point and made it much more easier for it to be used within our CI/CD template. It also makes builds to run faster because it's already on GitLab, and you just using it as the base image for your CI will make the job run much more faster instead of having to download, move things around, and so on. So basically, for now, and one of the reasons why we also decided to do this is like the Terraform images that we have, GitLab, depending on the need in the future, might want to do some bootstrapping and other things around the binaries. So that's why we decided to create it for now as an MVC. That's why we decided to create it for now as an MVC, where subsequently, probably in the future, more scripting or more code can be added to it to probably make it work with Auto DevOps or do some other things that are necessary to be more for your builds to be more efficient when they are using the images. So this is basically what the image does. This project does. It creates for every version of Waypoint that is out there. It creates images for them and also marks the most recent one as latest. If you look at the container registry here, we have all of the versions. I think between when it was released to date, there has been like 4 versions that have been released from 0.1.0 up to 0.1.3. So it makes it much more easier to not have to worry about if you want to use any of the latest versions, you can just specify latest, which at the moment uses 0.1.3. And for people that might worry about, okay, what other things goes into the images, nothing else for now, basically just downloading the binary for the specific versions and moving it to the right location where they need to run. Maybe in the nearest future, there might be some other things that as a community or GitLab we want to add to add more functionality to the binaries that are not existent in the default images, but the future will tell. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the many details. I think we will be having this ready for the next release, which will be 13.6, right?
Yeah, I think so. It should be 13.6.
Okay, yeah, then we probably have like 1 month to test everything and get things working, and hopefully inspire hopefully inspire everyone like to try it out now. Speaking of trying out, I think there is a certain repository somewhere with the examples to start from. Brandon, how did we land there last week?
Yeah, I can share it in here and I put it in the issue. But yeah, it's Brennan demo / Waypoint. I was actually going to go try and make it use that image because I realized it's not yet using the new image that we created. So it'd be cool to.
Do you want to try it out now?
Sure. Yeah.
Because we talked about this before. We're going to reuse the demo, which we already created, and just try things out. This is what this session is all about. So you now have 10 football trainers behind you, or soccer trainers. Will tell you what to do. But yeah.
Yeah, basically want to go like make sure the thing that we're going to put into GitLab still works. So I'm going to the merge request and grabbing the waypoint example. I was playing with GitPod earlier, so ended up in GitPod.
I was just wondering why are you using GitPod now? This is the wrong session. No.
Well, yeah. I wanted to play with it, and I wanted to like have waypoints. So like the nice thing with GitPod is like you can define the container you're running inside of, right? And so like I installed waypoint into the, so if you go to the project and open it in GitPod, you like also get waypoint working and running already.
Oh,
right.
Nice.
But Cross, you deployed your own Docker file for GitPod, right?
Well, you can deploy your own Docker file, or I literally just like you can specify a .gitpod.docker file that like starts from there. This file of theirs that's like got all their tooling, and then I just install waypoint to it.
Okay, so it's basically like the dev container part in VS Code.
Exactly the same idea. Yep. Okay, so the thing I wanted to do was, let me get my CI YAML. I'm basically going to, sweet, brought in those two, which is nice. And I don't want to do it that way because I got weird characters it's not going to like. Let's go back. Just want this. Some not like. What did it not like about that? I think it looks fine. Okay, great.
You didn't save the file.
Yep, thank you.
That's my error.
You can also click on autosave.
There you go. My Zoom little sharing thing was over top of it, so I was.
Yeah, recently we figured that you can set autosave to on, but this probably might kill the Kubernetes cluster. So it's not on by default. So, but you can kind of have a GitPod settings JSON or something like that where this is on by default then.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, and what about dot files? Does it have like a concept of like your own dot files to load in? Do you know on GitPod?
Yeah, I think when you build your own GitPod container, you can also place your own dot files into that mostly.
Yeah, I need to do that because I have like so many shorthand things for Git commands. And I just like am in here and I'm typing them and it's like, I don't know what you're doing.
But you're also using the terminal, so I'm not the only one doing that.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Instead of like the user interface, I have no trust of it. I mean, it works most of the time, but that's almost the problem is that it works most of the time. And so when it messes something up and I don't understand what it did, I get confused and angry at it. I have a buddy who just like exclusively uses that in VS Code, and like I cannot pair program with him because I'm like, something's going to go wrong. I can't watch. All right, yeah, this is working. Oh no, that's not the right image, friend. Oh no, it's pulling the service image. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So it's using the right image and then Docker in Docker image. Cool. I think it's. I mean, the fact that it ran Waypoint in it means it basically worked because you had Waypoint. the thing we were testing is Waypoint going to be installed correctly in Abubakar's Docker image. But you can watch how Waypoint actually runs.
Spin up also the infrastructure part. So for example, when I need an ECS cluster for that, will it also do for me the job?
That's a great question. It does all of that for you. So I just gave it an access key and a secret key. And then that's all I ever have given it. And it actually, we'll see it here once it gets there. But it actually, if we pull up my AWS account, it created Waypoint automatically created the ECS cluster, created like IAM roles, created the application load balancer. Oops, that's the wrong one. Too many AWS accounts to count.
So it's more like a CNAP, like the Cloud Native Application Bundle.
Yes. Yeah, so see, it found this existing Waypoint cluster. So yeah, let's dig into that a little bit. So if we open up the Waypoint HCL file, where does it get that from? I guess it just names the cluster. Maybe you can specify the name somewhere, but it finds this. If this ECS cluster was not there, it would create it. So these things that it's saying it found existing, it originally created the first time it ran. Found the IAM rule. So it makes a new task definition, make sure the ALB is targeting it. Security groups, like all of that, it just kind of abstracted away from me. And I didn't set up any of that. Yeah, and it like creates the service and releases it. And then gives you the running URL, which it's down right now as it's shifting over probably, but it should be up eventually.
Okay, but this is your normal AWS URL. It's not the Waypoint exposed.
Yeah, I don't get the.
Okay.
So that would be this deployment URL. I don't know. I have not dug in to understand what that really is yet.
Yeah, so I think there's
so
a server. I think there's a server component for Waypoint.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is used for logging and execution or doing an exec, and also for this URL. So I think there's a server running, hosting this kind of stuff, and then I think you're getting a Let's Encrypt certificate or something. But I did not have any time to dig into it.
Yes. So I agree. Yeah. So there's a whole server component that we started down that path when we first started installing it, and then just kind of wanted to, yeah, you're right. Right here, it says storing the history, enabling functionality such as logs, exec. Yeah. So the other idea of Waypoint that we haven't even touched on is like, I want to be able to just say Waypoint logs, and it doesn't matter where this thing is running, I'll get the logs of my app back. Like even if there's not like a standard way to do that, or Waypoint exec, and I'm in my app, right? Like it doesn't matter where it's running. Is it a Docker container in an ECS cluster? Is it a pod on a Kubernetes cluster, or wherever it is? Like I want to bash into like wherever it is.
As you mentioned, Vagrant for the cloud.
Yeah, that's the Vagrant for the cloud concept, right?
It's also like Atlantis. So Atlantis is also a project from HashiCorp. It was brought by HashiCorp, so that helps you to run Terraform as a team and doing all the execution of Terraform for you.
Yeah, so I started like setting up a server on like an EC2 instance, and then I just was like, you know what, this is a lot more than I'm wanting to do. But yeah, it gives you this like fantastic interface that looks really good. I think I might actually have it running. Yes, it's running here. 9701 and 9702. Okay, so I have it running locally on an Ubuntu server that, as you can see, has everything running on it. 9701. 9701 is like the API where it talks to itself, I think. Oh, maybe that's not. Maybe it's not running. I thought it was running. 9702.
Maybe it takes a while.
I mean, it was already, I thought it was just running.
Yeah, but I remember us last week also looking into it's not running, and then after 2 minutes it was running for some reason.
So I guess it's running.
The container's already running.
Yeah, the container's running. I don't know what's wrong with it. So
And maybe kill the container and restart it.
But then all your history is gone. No.
oh yeah.
Okay, but I guess this would be something I would like to run in a Kubernetes cluster somewhere centralized or so.
Exactly.
Yeah, so in the example when you typed Waypoint server run, so you can run it in Kubernetes, Nomad, or Docker. Mostly.
Ah, okay.
But interesting, the idea is so that you're having like a configuration or a deployment server at least, so a single point in your infrastructure. It would be also interesting if you can scale directly Waypoint, mostly.
Yeah.
Because what is when the Waypoint server is not available, so that you can't do any deployments anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like we have right now.
But it works in the pipeline, right? So
well, but that was just running the client side locally, right? That wasn't. This is on my local network, versus in the pipeline. It just was running the Waypoint command and using like the AWS credentials to go hit AWS to do it. This is like my server that's in my house right now.
okay.
So the server part is basically optional. If you would like to get all the execution or exec logging and deployment
Exactly.
URL stuff.
But how does he remember when you have multiple deployments in a CI environment? Because where's the state saved literally then?
You can define workspaces which are kind of environments, and this is something which we kind of added to the documentation. You could use, for example, this.
Probably it's
CI.
HTTPS.
Oh, it is. That's what it is.
So the typical problem, so that you crawling the site on HTTPS and not HTTP.
Yep.
I have a déjà vu from Thursday.
Yep.
But normally is it the way around? At least with Chrome, you would like to do HTTP and you're getting HTTPS all the time.
Yeah, but not for IP addresses.
Oh, what did I do?
Yeah, you're right.
Secure connection failed. Doesn't like the certificate.
But
Yeah,
I think it should be
because
the one
it's a
because
self-signer.
Go for learn more, maybe, because this is it's a security problem. Self-signed certificate.
Oh, that's right. I remember this. Now I'm having the right flashbacks too.
You have a photographic memory, it seems.
Yeah. So this is so you get like a whole running dashboard of the application. So I think this is running. Oh, this is also running the same an ECS deployment. But I did deploy it to Docker here. Yeah, so yeah, this is the idea is you can see all of this releases and deployments and the logs from this thing, etc. But obviously I don't fully have this working, if that wasn't obvious. And then there's this concept of like I don't know how authorization and authentication, to your point of like by environment, is going to be. There's like an invite thing where I can be like, oh, here's like a thing if you want to start deploying to Waypoint. But obviously that's not their long-term vision, I can't imagine, but I don't know what that long-term vision is.
I think it will also be interesting to see how this integrates with Vault and also like existing strategies with Terraform, and how the whole ecosystem of HashiCorp will evolve based on the 2 new product announcements. Maybe everyone else in the coffee chat round now, did you check it out already? What did you think about the announcement last week? Niklas?
I restricted myself, so I didn't test it out before because I want to be excited on the stream, so that I get every new information directly from the stream. So I need to be really confessed that I don't see all the new features out of that. Literally, I think it's a good integration in all of the products because of the strategy that HashiCorp tries to force, so that they also use a zero trust model for all the networking, all the components, so that we have everything. If you want to ensure trust, you need to control all the stuff. So one of the missing pieces was the deployment tool right off the box. So in the past there was also Auto, but Auto was too early. And mostly I think it's a more rewrite of the whole application stack. Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting part because I said earlier, mostly because I think it's a more idea of having the cloud native application bundles so that you stick everything together. So your application, your deployment of the infrastructure part, so that you can deploy every stuff with only one command in the end. So that you reduce the complicated stuff a lot of, but the complexity can be huge in the end. So, and the opportunity of that is that you can have a continuous validation of all your changes mostly. So mostly the continuity would be the most important part about that, so that you can easily also continuously deploy all the stuff. I found the idea really interesting that they have a client server model. And I will see in future how it will fit. And probably I will implement it in a prototype in our own company for some stuff, because I'm currently working on some similar problems. And we'll see how it goes in terms also on security mostly, because I'm interested in how you can save securely all the secrets and so on. Yeah, so that would be from my side.
So you probably already clicked on Brandon's GitPod demo link right now, right?
I forked it already. I see I forked it on the company account, so I need to relog in, but then I need to do second factor, and I was too lazy for that because I didn't have my watch on my hand. So yeah.
So we might have a follow-up workshop on that in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
Perfect. Nico, what's your take?
So to be honest, I did not have much time the last week, so I basically only followed some tweets on Twitter on the announcement and stuff. So basically, this stream is actually the first time I'm looking into the stuff at the moment. I somehow like Waypoint, but I'm not sure if I really get all the points at the moment. So this whole server component part is not really clear to me at the moment, but basically it's the first version. And I also shared in the chat the roadmap. I think there are some nice parts on the roadmap. So yeah, I will have to dig into it maybe on the weekend or the weekend after or tonight.
Maybe you could join Niklas tonight trying it out.
No, I don't want to do this tonight.
Yeah, I think it would be bad. I think we would do anything else the next 2 days.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's the same. I would like go ahead and like at 3 a.m. in the morning, it doesn't matter. But I think we are all getting older and we need to kind of slow down a little and eat more drashikiksi. Do you have any drashikiksi left?
Yes, 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, probably need to
Mood
send
fast.
some keksi to Brandon and Abu Bakr as well. So please give me your postal addresses. Now in Slack, I'm waiting for it. How about Mikey from Lower Austria?
So I have no time to dig into it. Also, most the same kind that I want to have the experience in this meeting, in this session. For me, it's coming from a non-cloud native side. It's really interesting because it looks like that it's now much easier to get into cloud native because it do the most magic for me. And so it could be easier to get in. And also what I like is that it supports Nomad out of the box, because on-prem Nomad is better than on-prem Kubernetes. So I found it really interesting. I can guess that the server is there to make a punch hole for the API, so that they use it to host their own API service and don't use the API servers from the cloud providers themselves. But yeah, I definitely have a plan to try this out, and hopefully I can get the service up and running on the weekend. So I will see.
Yeah, I think what we tried out was the getting started documentation, and then we kind of cloned an examples repository, and there were lots of examples inside. I think there was nothing with C++, but that's probably something to try out.
I do it in Python anyway, so.
Okay, yeah, that's.
I never start with C++.
Okay, going the high level approach, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? I've seen that Marcel is back somewhere.
Yes, I'm back, but the status is basically the same as Nico. Like, I still have to catch up with some topics, and this is the first time I take a deeper look into Waypoint.
Anything which would help your process, like current CI/CD systems or specific languages? Maybe you can talk a little bit about your current project, which programming language, which CI/CD you are currently using.
The biggest CI/CD part at the company is still Jenkins, unfortunately, but yeah, good old Jenkins. And beside that, most of the stuff is just Python, Circle CI, and we're doing a lot with Terraform. And yeah, I would say Python and Terraform is like this thing that I spend most of the time of the day with.
Okay, so basically maybe do a pair programming session with Mikey then.
Yeah, maybe on the weekend.
Definitely on the weekend.
Okay. Anything else we could try out, or maybe even? Oh, I see David is here.
Hello. Yeah, sorry I was a little bit late. Some corporate responsibilities hung over me. Thank you, Brandon, for showing off Waypoint. That was very interesting. Our team is currently working on a deploy Ruby in Docker to Cloud Run using Google Cloud Build and Terraform for a couple of adjacent things. And so Waypoint is really highly interesting to me. The thing that makes me a little bit hesitant is we're like maybe 2 months into the project, just onboarding a completely new team on that infrastructure, because none of us has done any cloud work before, and already our project is more complicated than what I saw now can be addressed with Waypoint, right? We are running unit tests during the build. We are adding resources that are not just Cloud Run containers, like a firewall and a network for our environments. And we have to interact with outside systems for the acceptance testing then when we're actually triggering interactions with the services that we deploy. So I could see how if you, and it was already a huge load to learn all the concepts to get that working together, and we're now finally in the phase where everything starts to come together. Like we're starting to talk about the code problems in our service and not how we're deploying it. We get a branch-based environment to develop in when we push to GitHub. But I can't see how Waypoint would have made any of that onboarding at the start easier or simpler, because I think we would still have to understand how are we using the services of the underlying cloud service, what are the adjacent services that we have to integrate, et cetera, and that also means I don't see that we're that mobile to another cloud platform, because we're using Firestore, the JSON thing, and we're using the cloud APIs throughout our code. So I can't deploy it to a local Kubernetes or Nomad or anything else, because we are already dependent on those other services. So yeah, I need to look more into Waypoint. Maybe it would have cut out some of our process building around that, right? On getting the integration with GitHub going, et cetera. But I haven't seen anything of that yet with the Waypoint, what you showed off. So yeah, I probably also need to look more into it, but I'm not certain that it will actually give us something.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, I don't work for HashiCorp, so I don't need to defend Waypoint, but I think that the cool idea, like I sent the link to one of the roadmap things, is like, I see this strategy that Hashi is walking down that's like between this, and then you talk about console and service mesh, and you talk about Vault, if that's what everyone's going to be using for security, where it's like, what if this is the central thing that makes that easy someday, right? Like that, hey, it's hard. Like everything you just said is hard about deploying an application today, right? Like databases and this and all the connections of the different stuff in cloud infrastructure. So I think you probably articulated the problem they want to solve in the long term with this, right? Pretty well. If I had to guess in what's in Hashimoto's mind right now for the future of the thing.
That did not reassure me, sorry, because like I don't actually, GCP has been great as a platform for us, because like, yes, the road to getting all the code bits lined up, et cetera, and figure out that actually we just need to use the Ruby libraries they give us and use the defaults, and they actually work out. And if we have the IAM configured correctly, it just connects to the database and it works, right? So it was hard getting there, but then the solution was simple. And so I don't see how Waypoint could have made it any simpler, other than having better documentation around, hey, this is how you do it in Ruby, and it just works, right? And there I can see it, right? Like there could be a Waypoint demo project for GCP application, and I just start from there, like Waypoint init Ruby, and I get a filled out template that already has all those integrations kitted out. But then as a principal engineer, I still at some point need to go a level deeper and understand what's going on there to be ready for the next step.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly like, I mean, it's a similar problem space as GitLab Auto DevOps in that same way, right? Like, hey, we want to make it really easy that it's kitted out and it works out of the box. But does that make it harder to then actually, engineer it once it exists? Like Heroku is, on the one side of that equation where it's super easy to get going. I don't think people have really solved for the other side. Like I work for GitLab. I don't think Auto DevOps solves for that other side completely. I mean, I like some of the decisions we've made. It's plug and play. Like you can pull different pieces out of it. That's great. You can get security from GitLab, but then like go do your own deploy stuff when you know you're going to have to do like your own thing. I would say the thing that got me so interested in this as an idea is that the only people that have ever done that successfully for anything is HashiCorp with Terraform, right? Like people do actually use Terraform instead of the AWS CLI a lot. And so if anyone has a chance at doing it, it might be Waypoint. But then again, in a year, Waypoint could be nowhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I think it depends a little bit on the adoption rate. So how fast the people will adopt it. And mostly what I found really interesting about this is that you have also the same capabilities like in Terraform that we're currently knowing, because in Terraform you have the possibility to wrap every API into a plugin. So that, for example, as a user, when I'm a Terraform user, I don't need to deeply know how, for example, AWS is working. I need only to know how the AWS plugin is rightly working. So the provider is working, how I can create the resource. But at least you need to understand the concept of AWS. But this is also the same for Waypoint. So you can extend your own pipeline with your own plugins if you need to, but you can rely on many plugins. So for example, like I watched over this and I see they have also some really cool plugins right out of the box, but you have also the options to extend it to your own needs. And probably the community will do this in the end. This is mostly like with Terraform. I think in Terraform you have at least 250 custom plugins right now, custom providers that are officially or really mainstream supported. And then we will see also what is interesting about the plugin concept, that you have different phases where plugins come in. So you have a builder phase, you have a deployment phase, or you have a release phase. So there a plugin can play your strength. So you don't need to build a plugin that is omnipotent, that can do everything. You have a little more fine-grained strength so that you can say, okay, my plugin is really good in the builder phase, or it can be good in the release phase, or it can be good in the deployment phase. Yeah. And there we will see, mostly it depends on the adoption rate, mostly. Because it's like with every new tool that comes out, it's hard really to bring this into companies, for example, to change all this stuff. Because they are relying typically on tools that are working in the past. And when the adoption is not easy enough, or it's can't use all the constraints that you currently have in your company, can't solve or use all the constraints, then it won't be adopted, mostly. This is what I know. And yeah, we will see it in future. I think it's too early to tell if it could be a success or not. Mostly we need to at least wait a year or longer.
Yeah. And to repeat my very cynical corporate viewpoint from last week, I don't see any way to monetization for that, right? Like, yeah, sure, they have that server and you can have a centralized point and you can integrate it with your authentication, but is that their monetization play? Is that what will give them the 10x return on the VC that they're looking for?
I think it is in their SaaS, right? I mean, I don't know that it is. I think the thought is it is in their SaaS, right? So the other thing we've seen HashiCorp doing is like trying to make the SaaS their play, right? Because like most of their money comes from Vault today, which is great. But if they want to monetize the rest of the stack, it's like going to have to be a SaaS play, which I don't know if they win that or not. That is very debatable. But the Terraform, because they had a number of like cloud things. So they've got Terraform Cloud, which is kind of like the toe in the water thing, and they're all excited about that. They were talking a lot about it. I think that's why that interface we saw. This is my theory to like the team last week. That's why that interface looks so nice.
Yeah,
because that's going to be the SaaS interface someday, down the road.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. I mean, like Puppet is making money from selling access control on top of Puppet classification and Puppet runs, right? So it's not unheard that that is a sales strategy.
So Waypoint will be the entry point to the HashiCorp world someday.
It's my theory. You can quote me on it when I'm right or wrong later down.
So probably it's like the same that you get addicted
Tweet
to
it, Michael.
HashiCorp by all the other stuff. So it's like when you are buying your first iPhone or your first iPod, and then at the end of the day, you have all Apple products mostly.
So it's the crushy cakes of HashiCorp, right?
Yeah. That would be also true.
Yeah, the more I think about it that way, the more it makes sense, right? Like as a hobbyist at home, like I haven't yet found a good cloud native way to deploy small applications. Like how do I deploy Nextcloud for my family? The best I can come up with is download a Docker Compose from some Git repository and manually Docker Compose up on my hosted server. And honestly, that is a horrible, horrible, horrible UX. Being able to waypoint up Nextcloud from my development machine where I have the deployment in a Git repository and eventually maybe have it run from some Cloud CI, that sounds a lot more appealing to me as a hobbyist, right? And then you're just on that line of coke to commercialization in your company because it works so well at home.
Yeah.
But that's also a very long game to play because first you need to build it, then you need to find people who are using it to deploy their applications at home and to get into the companies then.
I think it was a good famous last word, and we will just look out what's coming next. I would say thanks for the interesting insights. I have no idea what we will be talking next week, but let's just see if something new pops up. Otherwise, we might be looking into GitPod, Rust, or anything else. With that, I wish you a pleasant evening, afternoon, morning, depending on the time zone. And